Oh, Donna, bless you. Okie doke. Sorry, everyone. We had a minor technical glitch, but we are set now. Thank you, Donna Wanke, for helping out with that. Since 5:45 this evening, the board has been in closed session for purpose of discussion of lawfully closed meeting minutes for the purpose of approval of the body of the minutes and semi-annual review of the minutes is mandated by Section 2.06, the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, and performance or dismissal of specific employees of the district, litigation when an action against, affecting, or on behalf of a particular district has been filed or is pending before a court or administrative tribunal. Sale or purchase of securities, setting of a price for sale or lease of property owned by the district, and finally, collective bargaining matters between the district and its employees. And if I may have a motion to come out of closed session, please. Second. A motion and a second to come out of closed session. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. And thank you, everyone, for coming this evening. I appreciate it. We try to start as quickly, as timely as possible, so I appreciate your patience. And in welcoming everyone this evening to our mission to educate students to be self-directed learners, collaborative workers, complex thinkers, quality producers, and community contributors. And with that, we will ask Ms. Bell for a roll call, please.
Student Ambassador present, Stephen Trainer, board members present, Kristen Fitzgerald, Susan Price, Terry Fielden, Jackie Bromberg, Donna Wanke, Susan Crotty, and Mike Yesh.
Thank you, and are all important. Stand if you are able for the Pledge of Allegiance with Highland Elementary School.
You're welcome. Good evening, everyone. I'm Cheryl DeGan. I'm the principal at Highlands, and I have 6 of our student council members here. All of these members are 5th graders, and they have been in student council for 3 years, so we're very proud to have them here. I'll let them introduce themselves.
I am Skylar Cahan, and I'm in 5th grade, and I've been in SAB for 3 years.
I'm Janelle Smith. I'm in 5th grade, and I've been in SAB for 3 years, too.
I'm Diana Sukup. I am also in 5th grade, and I have also been in SAB for 3 years.
I'm Kaya Jane. I'm also in 5th grade, and I've been in SAB for 3 years.
I'm Grace Raquel, and I have only been in SAB for 2 years.
I'm Manav Ahuja, and I've been in SAB for 3 years, and I'm a 5th grader in Highlands Elementary.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great work. And parents, if you'd like to step into the front here to get their picture, you may do so. We'll hold them here for a second.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm not going to get them sick. Thank you so much, Highlands. I'm not going to shake anyone's hand or pass my germs around. I'm not doing that. Okie doke. Thank you so much. Thank you, Highlands, for coming this evening. We have a couple of other fabulous recognitions tonight. The first one being Kennedy Junior High School Math Counts team.
Well, that is our good news and recognition for this evening. The Kennedy Junior High School math team took first place in the state Math Counts competition on March 8th, and 2 Kennedy students will head to the national competition in May. The 2 students, Nikki Sun and Alex Chen, will advance as part of the Illinois team to the national competition May 8th through 11th in Orlando. They qualified by scoring in the top 4 on individual written rounds. The Kennedy team captured first place out of 62 schools in the state contest, beating Whitney Young Academic Center and University of Chicago Lab School. So congratulations to the team. I'd like to invite Kennedy Principal Brian Valek and Coach Suzanne Croco to join me for them to introduce the team and for me to present them with certificates. So. mind, parents, if you'd like to step into this area for a better picture, please feel free to do so. Coaches are going to join them in principle, so there we go.
High security guy there. They know who you are. That's not.
Great, congratulations. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Kennedy Junior High. What an accomplishment. Okay, next on our agenda this evening is public comment, and I'd just like to review the rules real quickly in fairness to everyone. If you're an individual, you have 3 minutes to speak. If you're a group, 5 minutes. And we have as always, we really like to stick to that, again, just out of respect for everyone's evening. If you're coming up, well, I'll call your name in the order. Is there anyone here that did not understand to fill out a form that's out in the lobby area? Please make yourself known, and we'll get you a slip. And the first person, and when you come to the podium, you'll see 2 blue lights that have to be illuminated on the mic. And if you can mention your name and address for the record, please. And the first one, Jay Fisher. And Jay is speaking for a group, so Jay has 5 minutes. And Jay knows the drill.
Just leave the mic on. Okay.
Yeah, just leave it.
Okay. President Romberg, members of the board, staff, good evening. My name is Jay Fisher. I reside at 6554 Tealwood Drive in Lisle, and I am here again this evening as the president of STAGE, which stands for the Supporters of Talented and Gifted Education. And 2 weeks ago, I came before you to speak about some of the questions and concerns that STAGE had regarding the proposal in terms of instructional assistants. And the preceding 2 weeks, we received some of the answers to our questions, and we're appreciative of that. Specifically, this last week, we heard from a member of the staff that the district had heard our concerns about the decrease in enrichment opportunities for grades 3 through 5, and that was going to be addressed. So we are thankful for that and looking forward to hearing the precise details. We also heard some data regarding student contact and the cost of the proposals. That being said, we still had a couple of questions and concerns that we would like to highlight this evening. The first one really goes to the question of equity, and I know that asking for complete equity could be a fool's errand, and as one of the staff members explained to us this week, the present model for giving delivering enrichment could be inequitable in the sense that if you have an enrichment assistant who can pull out 6 second graders for enrichment in math, then the seventh student who could benefit from enrichment under the current model would receive 0 enrichment. So that is one of the possibles under the proposal in terms of increased enrichment. But I'd like to highlight a couple of the ones that jump out at us. I would also like to thank Sonia Harmon, who's the immediate past president of STAGE, who has done a lot of work on this issue, has done most of our written material. So I'd like to thank her. And she sent some information to the board members and staff. Obviously, the one that jumps up is the inequity between, say, a 3-section school and a 4-section school. If you have a 3-section school and you get 1 instructional assistant, that would be 1 assistant per roughly 75 kids. And if you're in a 4-section school, then you would have 1 instructional assistant for 50 kids. So that, a difference right there of 50% from a 3-section school to a 4-section school. And I hear from several parents about all things. And one of the things I've heard about over the last 2 weeks is, the issues that, not all the buildings are the same. Some buildings have more students who are in need of catching up. Other buildings have more students who are ahead. And that was something that I've heard about is, what happens if you're an enrichment student at a building that has a lot of kids that need help to catch up? Is the instructional assistant's time going to be spent dealing, naturally with the issues of those kids that need to catch up, and whether there'll be less time for enrichment in that building there would be in a different building? So that was one of our suggestions, was maybe, it seems to be a one-size-fit-all model now, that we could maybe tweak it so that you can divide the instructional assistance time more fairly amongst the schools. And the other issue that we've had and we'd like to bring up this evening is regards to just the general, one might say, the wariness of parents who are not sure how they're going to be able to tell when differentiation enrichment is being done in the classroom. That was something that I mentioned 2 weeks ago, and something that we brought, to the district's attention. And there's a sense that, while the current model is not perfect, right now, as a parent, we know when our child is being pulled out to go enrichment. Our child will tell us, I went to the enrichment assistant today, and a packet will come home every couple weeks with, this is what was done, stamped enrichment. And under the current model, with a lot of the differentiation being done in the classroom, I think there's a concern amongst parents that they're not going to be able to tell when enrichment is being done. And so in our latest written statement that we passed out, Sonia highlighted a couple of things, but one that I would like to mention that I've heard from several parents is the idea of maybe expanding the groupings beyond the classroom. So if you have a 3-section school, that you can divide up the students and maybe put like the top third in one class for reading and the middle third in another and the bottom third in a separate, and that would, then provide like a more ready-made platform for differentiation, that the classroom teacher, instead of having to deal with all different levels at one time, would be able to focus on one group of students and their needs. So that was one of the suggestions that the stage board was in favor of. And the third option, I've been told that the word pilot is a bad word, so maybe a tryout, a trial, some other words. That is another thing that I've heard from many parents, is that we can we, try this out at several schools next year, come back and analyze it with metrics. And if we can't, then maybe we can do something that Kristen might be familiar with from her time on the Hill, sunset it, come back after a year with metrics, see how much differentiation has done, see how the test scores of the LEAP kids have done. But, my time is up, but I want to finish to say that, we're all want the same thing, board, staff, parents, we all want each child to be educated to the heights of their abilities, and we just, looking forward to working with this district to make sure that enrichment is provided for all our kids. So thank you.
Thank you, Jay. Roxanne Kelsey. And Roxanne is speaking on her own behalf, so 3 minutes, please, and your name and address. And the next person will be Julie Rust-Jelliff, so if you can make your way somewhere up towards the... Is she up? Okay. Oh, thanks.
Hi, good evening. My name is Roxanne Kelsey. I'm speaking as a private individual. I was actually advised by my general counsel. I need to give a disclaimer. I am a private individual in this capacity. I'm on the member of the stage board, but I'm also not speaking for the stage board. And for professional reasons, I don't give my address, but I do live in the Highlands East neighborhood. I attended the Future Focus meetings that we had. I do have three children in the 203 district, and the point that came out of Future Focus for me was, how are we achieving world-class education? And I propose to you today that if we take out the enrichment, which is what I believe we're doing, especially for grades K through 2, we're replacing that with the just-in-time support program, which does nothing to enrich the top students. It provides support for all students, for the students who need support, and these top students will not be needing the support services provided. The aides will have no time to enrich the top students. There have been numerous published studies showing that only pull-out differentiation works. The question becomes, why are so few parents protesting? I believe we're experiencing the tyranny of the majority here. We have some parents who see that we have 80% of the students who are served by the new model, and they're ignoring that 20%, or whatever the percentage may be. But for us to really engage in world-class service, we have got to engage all of our students. If we are not differentiating, which I believe this new program cannot differentiate at K through 2, we will not be giving them the enrichment they need There was a comment from the audience back when the Kennedy Math Counts kids were up here. I believe that all of them engaged in enrichment. And would they have been up here? Would they be going to nationals if they had not had enrichment K through 2? If we have a goal for world-class service, we must meet the needs of all of our students, including the top students. Malcolm Gladwell wrote that we need 10,000 hours of concerted effort, and these students are not receiving concerted effort in K through 2 without enrichment. We will not be able to achieve the levels of world-class service that North and Central are giving our students. When you look at the National Merit semifinalists, we have 40 students from North and Central this year, and that is something to be proud of. We should all be proud of our students. We should be proud that 3 of the students from North were accepted at Harvard. That's what the Central or North guidance counselor told me, and that's something we need to keep in mind. If our students are not getting gifted or any sort of enrichment in K through 2, 2.5, that's 1/3 or 1/4 of their educational experience here at 203. And if we cannot provide them the 10,000 hours they need to reach those levels of success, we will not have the school district that we need to draw in and to supply the education that we owe our students. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Julie? Sorry, I didn't see you behind Kane there.
Sorry about that.
No worries. Thanks so much. Thanks for coming. Get your name and affiliation.
Thank you. My name is Julie Resch-Jelliff. I live at 4848 Snapjack Circle in Naperville. I'm the UNISERV Director for Region 39 of IEA-NEA, and NESPA is one of the 4 organizations and associations that I am very proud to represent. NESPA understands that the board and the district have the sole right to create programs, to discontinue programs, to hire and to lay off staff. No one is arguing that. However, NESPA members and leadership have serious concerns about the manner in which this potential change is taking place, and more importantly, the communication surrounding it. Up until 4 weeks ago, employees who were affected by this change were told that their program was continuing for next year. They were told to order supplies and had begun doing so. Imagine then the feelings of betrayal and distrust that arose when they were informed on the Thursday before spring break that everything was changed. Their program was gone and their jobs were gone. The jobs of 71 employees are gone, replaced with 48 positions. Of those 71, only 31 have recall rights. At the meeting with the district, employees were not told how the application process would work. They were told that that hadn't been decided yet, but they would know after spring break. They have not been told that yet. So we have 40 employees with no jobs who don't know how to apply for the jobs that will be left. They were told that the district believes everyone will have a job, but for those 40 employees, that belief is not good enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Winnie Jones, and Winnie is speaking on behalf of herself and a group, so she would have 5 minutes.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak before you again tonight. Much has happened since the board meeting on the 7th. Petitions have been circulated, a Facebook page and website has been created, flyers distributed and posted around town. As a result, thousands of District 203 residents have voiced their support of Project LEAP, and we want to thank each and every one of them. At this point, the buzz I hear from a variety of sources is that this proposal to eliminate LEAP, reading, and enrichment assistance was a done deal long before the public was made aware of it. It seems this new model is the baby of several in the administration who perhaps want to put their stamp on the district. Sadly, none of these administrators has taken 35 minutes to observe a LEAP session or 15 minutes to observe a K-LEAP session, or apparently care to. To briefly revisit a few points, At the April 7th board meeting, Kitty Ryan noted the wasted transitional time a child spends walking to and from the classroom and the LEAP station. Well, after 1 or 2 days in the hands of a skilled LEAP tutor, there is no wasted time. Often, the conversation to and from the LEAP station is used to prepare the student for the upcoming session, to talk about what take-home book was his favorite, to review aspects of the just finished session, or to reinforce positive steps the child has made during the session. If anything, this is another positive aspect of the LEAP model. Ms. Ryan repeatedly praised the skill of the LEAP tutor force, but stated that in the new model, administration wanted to just use them in a different way. She seemed to imply that they could be skilled not only in supporting literacy, but enrichment, math, small group instruction, etc., etc. The LEAP tutors have been trained intensely and mentored consistently in the delivery of the LEAP model. Is this same kind of intense training, mentoring, going to be provided in all the other areas in which instructional assistants are expected to be proficient? Who will be doing all this training? Ms. Ryan also stated that enrollment assistants will be trained in a similar fashion. What exactly does that mean? Of course, the vote is tonight, and I imagine most board members already know how they will vote, so asking more questions at this point is moot. The big disappointment is administration did not work with LEAP staff from the beginning of this process, possibly several years ago, to consider if and how LEAP could meld with their notion of the new learning support model. This could have been a win-win situation for all, especially the students of District 203. Is this the kind of administration of which the citizens of Naperville can be proud? Not in my mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Winnie. Melissa Deacon. Melissa and Seth Deegan, please. I appreciate your applause. If we can move on respectfully to the next speaker, Melissa and Seth Deegan. They're not here. Okay. Oh. Okay. 3 minutes, please. If you could just state your name and address for the record, please.
Melissa Deegan, 921 Darius Lane. I have 2 children at Scott School, one in 1st grade and one in 4th grade in honors math and PI. Retribution, that word has come up. A lot of you are my neighbors here, and the question was posed to me by Mrs. Crotty earlier this year as to why parents don't talk. It's difficult to come up here and vent your feelings. It has been difficult in the past 18 months trying to rationalize the socio-emotional and disciplinary issues both of my children are witnessing at Scott School. Our experience was relatively uneventful the first 3 years at Scott, under the leadership of now retired full-time assistant principal Jeannie Klepper and principal Nick Masinski. My son's longtime Scott classmate and fellow St. Elizabeth parishioner Justin Plakowski was murdered by his mother last year. Trying to explain to a child why there are media satellite trucks parked outside their school on the day of their Halloween parade is no easy task. No child should be exposed to repeated incidents of theft, 2 fires, one of which was arson on school property, a narcotics search conducted by the Naperville Police Department in the school carpool lane, and repeated physical altercations among classmates. I will not apologize for my child's candor. Both children are articulate and openly discuss what is going on at school, good and not so good. My children's confidence for their safety at Scott School has diminished, as well as our families in the confidence in the ability of senior leadership at District 203 to stop these incidents from happening. Eliminating enrichment and LEAP is not helping boost our families' lagging confidence in the academic climate offered at Scott School. The achievement gap at Scott is significant. 28% of the students in my son's fourth grade class last year exceeded standards on the ISAT math section, and 21% did not meet standards. Despite the fact that 1/3 exceeded math standards, only 7 children were placed in fourth grade honors math. As my son says, there were a lot of kids who made it into PI, but were on the bubble for honors math, and they're sitting bored out of their minds in the classroom. These kids deserve another chance and a little push, plain and simple. The district needs to think outside the box and utilize emerging technology tools and extend enrichment learning into the home through online instruction for grades K through 5. I'm not asking for an enrichment assistant on the payroll. The performance series test administered to my first grader provided a clear picture of his intellectual capacity, despite the fact he has had an IEP for a neurological-based speech disorder since age 3. His test scores are grade 3 in both reading and math. Pull-out enrichment has been a huge confidence builder for this one self-conscious child. Please take that performance series data and build upon the success of these motivated early learners. Do not hold them back because 20% or more of the class is not testing at grade level. As a parent of a child who participates in honors math and PI, it is clear that children who qualify for these programs have significant support at home.
May I ask you to wrap up your comments,
I'm
please?
sorry. As a taxpayer, I am dissatisfied with the lack of utilization of Canvas by elementary level teachers to communicate with parents and provide transparency about what is going on in the general classroom. Canvas could be used for children to receive online instruction at home. I would welcome a Parents as Teachers online program in which enrichment assignments that are aligned with 203 curriculum are uploaded to Canvas. Naperville 203 families are spending thousands of dollars on early learning activities.
Melissa, I'm going to have to ask you to wrap it up in fairness to the other people that I gave a time limit to.
I'm so sorry. Okay. You know, before eliminating enrichment and making a discretionary program, I just ask that the district build bridges between what's happening at home and at school through this technology.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Jeannie Gunther, please. Your name and address for the record, please, Jeannie. Thank you.
My name is Jeannie Gunther. I live at 1213 North Loomis in Naperville. I am taking this opportunity to address the new learning support model from the perspective of a classroom teacher. I am here for myself, but I've heard from many teachers who are also expressing concern about the proposed learning support model. I taught for 23 years in District 203. I taught first, third, and fifth, and I've only been out of the district 2 years, not the 3 that's currently mentioned in the literature. District 203 is incredible. I have loved being a part of it. It has always had rigorous, challenging curriculum, and there have always been very high expectations for students. Having the Common Core curriculum, in my mind, hasn't changed that. It's always been an incredibly outstanding district. I am concerned about the model. As you know, the reading program during the day, the reading block, is probably the most important part of the day for K through 5, but particularly in the primary grades. As a third grade teacher, I met with children at their instructional level in small reading groups that range from 1 student to as many as 8. But I couldn't have done that alone. What made the difference at Kingsley School, where I taught and where I learned from the best, is that we had support. So we had the reading specialist who actually pulled children, not just from my classroom, but we pooled our third graders so that we were meeting them as a group of 75 kids, not individual classrooms. The reading specialist who met with them, the reading assistant who was trained by the reading specialist, the enrichment assistant who pulled children and knew what she was doing, and all her lessons supported the curriculum, as well as resource and ELL. It was an incredible opportunity. It was our spreadsheet to manage all this was amazing. So the kids had the best, I think, that they could have had instructionally. In addition, in my last year, I had a 5-hour assistant for just my classroom. We were able to do just-in-time support for all the children in the classroom, which was also amazing. I have always felt blessed to teach here. However, what happened was she was not trained as a reading specialist nor as an enrichment specialist. She was able to supply just-in-time support. We did this on our special. Had we not had a special, we would have had no time, and we did it on our lunch hours. So that was when I trained her to work with the children. So if I were still teaching, I would love 203, and I would still have great pride, but I would be missing the qualified reading assistants in K through 5 who are well trained on an ongoing basis by certified reading specialists and in demonstrated successful programs like Project LEAP. I would miss having children with special needs and behavior issues who get to meet outside the classroom. And in my classroom, when all of this support was going on, guess what? It didn't happen all in the classroom. That wasn't physically possible. So children were met in pull-out programs and in the classroom. If this program looks good, and it is indeed the thing that's the best for our kids, then I feel the district needs to get better at communication with the parents, and I would suggest that Project LEAP stay there to provide the kids KN1 with sound reading instruction to build fluency so that they can meet the challenges of 3 through 5 in the core curriculum, and put those instructional assistants in grades 3 through 5 and let them work there. So I'm hoping this is a change for the good, and I'll hope to see it.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Okay, our final. Thank you. Our final speaker is Monica Clements, and is there anyone else that wishes to speak that did not fill out a form yet? Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Monica. Monique, I'm sorry. Sorry about that. It doesn't need to happen. It was the penmanship was fine. Yeah.
Oh, my
perfect.
mom would be so pleased to hear. My name is Monique Clements. I live at 629 Vicksburg Court. I have a 5th grader in PI Plus and a 3rd grader in Honors Math, also receiving literacy enrichment. I was actually unable to attend the April 7th meeting because my 3rd grader was concerned about COGATs happening the next day. We've told her that COGATs don't mean anything to us, that she's wonderful anyway. But here's what she said. Mom, if it weren't for honors math and enrichment and art, her favorite, I don't know what I would do. And if I don't get into PI or PI Plus, I will spend the majority of my day bored out of my mind again. It's crushing what our youngest gifted students endure waiting for official programming to begin. It's upsetting that district policy restricts what our talented, nurturing teachers may provide. But this is our culture. I had sincerely hoped that this proposal would finally be a catalyst for change, a true vehicle for culture shift. But this proposal is not fully developed. It still feels a bit like the district is making it up a little bit as it goes along. Differentiation is not a panacea, and it's not enough just to say you're committed to it. I sent a letter to the board last week citing research on effective differentiation implementation. And I share the concerns raised in Stage's letter to the board released Friday. Although I don't feel the need to rehash these points, as I would hope you've already read them, there are gaps in this proposal that need to be closed in order to reach our students performing at any level. Even with these gaps, the community is being asked to trust the district. Personally, we've encountered too many roadblocks in our attempts to get our girls what they need. We've had a few great teachers and administrators, some of whom are sitting in this room, who have done everything they could to balance out that struggle. But at the end of the day, the district's past actions do not instill confidence that anything will be different this time around. The district contends that enrichment is a natural extension of the curriculum and not a destination, that teachers already differentiate regularly. Unfortunately, this has not been our experience. Pull-out enrichment, while not perfect, was necessary to meet our daughters' needs. In many differentiation models, gifted students often just fall off the radar. It's assumed they can manage themselves. but they're gifted, not prescient. They still need defined instruction and support like everyone else. I'm sure that many of you believe that you're not eliminating enrichment or LEAP, merely replacing them with a different delivery method. But make no mistake, in voting for this change, you are eliminating known programs in favor of an ambiguous proposal that lacks accountability, and you're gambling that the requisite level of curriculum will be provided to any of our students. You have a room full of constituents here that are telling you this is not what they want. We ask respectfully that you vote no today. Require the district to finish their proposal and come back with a fully defined plan, developed in conjunction with teachers and the community, truly tested and measured. Once vetted, the community may change its mind, but until then, we're left with broken trust and too many unanswered questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Okey-doke. Thank you. Thank you, speakers. Student Ambassador Report. Stephen, we're thrilled to have you here. Can you give us an update on Central?
Thank you very much. In the past month, towards the end of March, before spring break, we had our annual multicultural show, and it was a big hit, and we appreciate everyone who came out and supported it. Excuse me. This week, our seniors are pretty excited for the PSAE testing, so they don't have to come in. And the juniors are getting ready for their testing along with the freshmen and sophomores. And also, upcoming, we have prom on May 3rd for our juniors and seniors. We're getting real excited and ready for. And we're also focusing on, even though it's hard to, the AP testing coming up in May. So, this past week, we had a new event called Jock Jams at Naperville Central. It was where the student athletes kind of put on a show, kind of a dancing and trying to raise money for our adapted PE program, which was a good success for the first year. And we also had a wheelchair basketball where a team came in on April 17th to play against other students, and it was good to raise awareness for students with disabilities, and we raised some money for our adapted PE program, so that's pretty good. And lastly, the biggest thing that happened this past month was we had a speaker come in talking about heroin on April 10th in the substance abuse in Naperville. We've noticed, the teachers have noticed how much of a problem it's becoming. And as a student, I hear there's a heroin problem, all these problems, but it was kind of hard to relate to it because I didn't really know much about it. But the speaker that came in on the 10th was a heroin addict, and he, was a young guy and was really able to relate to the students and explain how dangerous it is and how prevalent it is in our community. And it was really good to have him there, and it was a good wake-up call to students to make better decisions, and it was just good to see that. It was really beneficial for myself and all students throughout the high school. So I was really glad that took place, and it was very beneficial. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. We love hearing your reports. Thank you, Stephen. And next, we have written communication, and in board docs you can see a page through that yourself. And next on our list is Superintendent Staff School Report.
Okay, we'll have a report this evening from a number of our team, so as they move forward up to the presentation table. Just a brief overview. As you're aware, over the past couple of years, we've been working on our digital learning strategy and device strategy. And tonight, to present an update on our digital learning initiative, is a team of individuals from both Learning Services and our IT team. So presenting tonight will include our Chief Academic Officer, Dr. Jen Hester, Chief Information Officer, Roger Brunel, Joe Jaraseski, our Director of IT Infrastructure, and John Davidson, our Director of Instructional Technology. So Roger, I believe you start. I'll turn it over to you.
Sure do. Good evening, everyone. How are you?
Good evening.
I'm here with my colleagues. Dan just introduced them. Stole a little by thunder there. And we're here to give you an update to the Board of Education on our digital learning initiative. We have formally referred to this as a one-to-one initiative, so just to get grounded on that, we've enhanced the branding to more accurately reflect our keen focus on digital learning transformation and student-centered instructional methods that position our students to excel in 21st century innovative learning environments. We're at an exciting part of our continued journey together, and it's now been enabled by the highly successful wireless network upgrade that is completed at all buildings, and this building we're sitting in will be completed, I believe, in a week and a half, and then the entire district is upgraded. We'd like to thank the Board of Education for your support and vision of that. You've provided us with a solid infrastructure foundation that should last quite a long time and enable these type of transformations. Next slide, please. While we're at the early stages of our initiative, we wanted to bring to the board a high-level update at this time to share more about the what, why, how, and when of this effort, all of which is reflected on this agenda, which I won't read, but instead we can go right directly to the goal and initiative component section. Next slide, please. Here's our goal. We want to be in a good position to recommend to the district a strategic recommendation regarding the expansion and enhancement of digital learning throughout our district, as well as providing increased student access to highly enabling technology, resources, and ecosystems. Let me take a moment to define ecosystems. When you think about Google, many people think of search. When you think about Microsoft, you might think about Microsoft Office. When you think about Apple, you might think about iTunes. Well, each of those major vendors has many more tools that they bring, which are called an ecosystem. For example, Google has Google Apps for Education, Google Drive, online storage, Google Plus social media, Google TV, Chromebooks, all those things. Apple offers the App Store, iTunes University for Education, iCloud Storage, Safari, Macs, iPads, iPhones, etc. And finally, Microsoft offers Exchange, SkyDrive, Azure, and various other management tools. As we move forward with this initiative, we tend to stress test and take a close look at each of these ecosystems to see which one best fits our needs. We're also going to, next slide, please. Well, we're also going to look at these outcomes for our initiative. We want to gain insight and understand what's necessary to position us to recommend a high-quality, effective, focused, and keyword is sustainable digital learning initiative. We are going to leverage existing efforts already in place across the districts and bake in those learnings. There's a lot of great things going on already in digital learning, and some that have been newsworthy and noteful in the last few months in this district, and we intend to capture those and bake those learnings into our assessment. We also will conduct a collaborative, vigorous initiative that maximizes discovery and minimizes time and expense. It's important that we right-size this initiative in terms of spending only what we need to spend to have the adequate findings to make a solid recommendation. So we need to put parameters in terms of scope and expenditure on it. And then we also will define the financial, technical, and operational frameworks required to implement and sustain this in an expanded version across the district. Next slide, please. Here are the success criteria we've defined. Number one, achieve the outcomes I just outlined. Number two, identify and recommend a K-12 digital learning program and associated ecosystems. Number three, provide high-quality professional development for our staff that supports the success of this initiative. Number four, establish key metrics that illustrate initiative success and provide a foundation to measure a fully scaled solution. With that, I'll turn this over to Dr. Hester to share more about the rationale.
Okay. The rationale behind the initiative is based on the continuously evolving landscape of learning. Our learners have changed, our capabilities to engage our learners have changed, and so we must respond to them in the context of the collaborative, social, and global world in which they live. So when you think about what learning looked like 10 or 15 years ago, the tools that teachers and students used were not as robust or as intuitive as they are today. Now students and teachers have access to a rich, multi-threaded, collaborative, technology-enabled, and internet-based learning environment. The teachers and leaders in the Digital Learning Initiative will seek to understand how blended learning and digital learning can support our students in continuing to meet the district's mission. Next slide, please. The Board of Education has seen this graphic before. And this was shared by Mr. Brunel and Melissa Hampton to illustrate the three key connected areas that, when in place, provide a rich context for transforming student learning. Mrs. Hampton described the current state of the connectedness of the three areas and the future state. In the Digital Learning Initiative, our project teams will explore content, they'll explore instructional methods, they'll explore different technology and tools so that learning and technology become seamlessly integrated into the classroom. At the same time, these teams will also consider professional learning needs for all of our teachers and our learners. Next slide, please. Again, this is a slide that the board has seen before in September when we talked about the online and blended learning consortium. In September, I shared this graphic with the board from my Innosight Institute that reflects the models of blended learning on a continuum. The Digital Learning Initiative will help us to understand how we can provide experiences for our students along this continuum and help us to deepen and understand each of those models.
Thank you, Dr. Hester. We want to take a few minutes and talk about the governance model and teams that we have that are supporting this initiative. This is a model that some of you may have seen in the past we've used for various technology projects such as the Student Information System and the Learning Management System. And in your appendix, you all will find a much more detailed version of roles and responsibilities, but we're going to highlight a few of those key points right here tonight. We're going to focus on the work streams that you see at the bottom, the blue and the green. And in order to effectively manage a project of this size, Joe and I, who are the project managers, decided to divide these streams into one that's instructionally focused and one that's more operational and technically focused. The teams that you see listed up there have been vetted against a lot of our subject matter experts, against nationally renowned research and educational technology plans. So when we look at the different teams that we have, they all match a lot of those different subject matter experts. For our instructionally focused team, those teams are going to focus on identifying our teachers, our buildings, and our tools that we will pilot. They will implement and come up with a professional development plan. They will help us establish the metrics that we will use to learn about this initiative. And Joe is going to take us through the green work stream so we understand the technology and process.
Thank you, John David. As John David mentioned, my work stream is one of technology and operations associated with this initiative. I'll briefly take you through the high points of each work process team. IT infrastructure will source, acquire, configure, and distribute front-end devices for each ecosystem as defined earlier by Roger. Ensure connectivity to all technology enablers such as wireless. Troubleshoot and support all equipment and technology within this initiative. Policies and procedures will ensure that all board and district policies are accounted for throughout this project. Draft, review, and edit additional policies that may be necessary. And overall, define the rules of engagement to be followed by students, teachers, and staff of this initiative and its eventual ramp-up to a fully scaled solution. Communications is ever so important. Create and execute communications plan to be used to distribute status and updates to all involved and or interested parties and stakeholders. Asset and financial management is tasked with coordinating and executing the equipment acquisition process, as well as building a financial model of this initiative such that can be used to characterize a fully scaled solution. John David.
Next slide, please. We wanted to bring you back to a timeline that we shared with you in December that captured some of our key items that were a part of our student device strategy presentation. As you can see, over the past few months, we've progressed on this timeline by completing our district network upgrade that Roger referred to earlier, continuing to deploy some of our web systems, optimally positioning BYOD, and continuing to evaluate and review digital content and software. We're still on track to begin our initiative this summer. Joe is going to take us through a much more detailed timeline that's focused specifically on this initiative right now.
As you can see from the timeline in front, timeline by definition is a point-in-time projection of where we plan to be, when we plan to be there, and a high-level relationship between steps. As this initiative progresses, this timeline may change. In the upper left, you can see the foundational work of the content and instructional methods team to determine the scope of the initiative in terms of schools, classes, and teachers. As you progress to the right with teacher professional learning through equipment acquisition, configuration, distribution, you can see how that unfolds. Within this timeline are key checkpoints in late May, early June, after scope of initiative is determined, as well as at the end of the fall semester for a recap of learnings to determine if enough information has been gathered to recommend a fully scaled solution or if we need to continue to gather more information. Also note that across the bottom of the timeline is communications, as that is an ever-present need throughout this entire initiative. Back to Roger, questions and answers.
Questions? Great. Lots been done. Lots been done. It's always nice to take a look back and see all the accomplishments. It's awesome.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Very informative. Okay.
That's it.
Aren't you going to talk about a report? About leave it on. Okay. Yeah. I didn't know if it was going to be. Oh, really? Okay. Okay, doke. I have no president's report. Any other Board of Education reports? Okay. So our monthly reports, as you can review in board docs, treasury report, investments, insurance report, budget report. And with that, I know Mr. Yench was our abled Board of Education member who did bills and claims.
Hey, for those who aren't regulars, just to bring you up to date, every month for our business meeting, one board member meets with Brad Kaufman, our CFO.
Excuse me, Michael.
Yes.
I've been asked, board member needs personnel pulled from consent because the person was not in closed session.
Okay.
Thank you.
And we review the state of the district's finances. I had the pleasure of doing that today, and I found everything in order. So I would move approval of warrant number 387-681 through warrant number 388-634, totaling $19,002,301.78 for the period of March 18th, 2014 to April 21st, 2014, and the consent agenda excluding 8.02, the adoption of the personnel report.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for 8.01 and then skipping to 8.03 through 8.09.
I'm sorry, I wanted to pull 8.07 to discuss. Sorry, I thought I did my.
Okay, doke. No, I'm sorry. I did not know that. Okay. Okay, doke. So, Michael, I'm going to have you redo motion.
Okay.
Can we do that? Sorry about that.
Do you have to go through the whole thing again?
No, you don't have to do the bills and claims.
I still move approval of the summary of claims as described earlier, and the consent agenda without excluding 8.02 and 8.07.
Great.
Second.
Great. We have a motion and a second. Ms. Bell, please.
Romberg?
Yes.
Yench?
Aye.
Fitzgerald?
Aye.
Crotty?
Yes.
Wonky?
Yes.
Price?
Yes.
Fielden?
Yes.
Great. Motion carries. And if we can have a motion, please, for 8.02.
I move approval of 8.02, adoption of personnel report.
Great. We have a motion and a second for 8.02, the adoption of personnel report. Ms. Bell.
Price?
Yes.
Romberg?
Yes.
Yench?
Aye.
Fitzgerald?
Abstain.
Wonky?
Yes.
Fielden?
Yes.
Crotty?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you. And 8.07, if we may have a motion, and then we'll ask the questions after the motion, if you don't mind.
approval of item 8.07, Madison entrance addition and renovations bid.
Great. A motion and a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second, and discussion on 8.07, Madison entrance addition and renovations.
I had contacted Dan earlier to ask him a little bit more about it. On the background of it, it talks about adding better security and conserving energy in the schools as presented. And I know we have lots of schools that could use that. And it was, I wanted to talk about it a little bit because I was surprised to see that on the agenda.
I'll give you a brief overview and then ask Steve Mathis to provide any additional information, especially regarding energy savings or whatnot. It's a conversation that has actually been ongoing for a number of years between Madison and Steve, and actually Steve's predecessor. And part of the discussion has been around the reutilization of space in the office area more efficiently to support operations of the administration and the support of the school system. In addition, it takes advantage of an opportunity to provide a more secure entry to the building. Steve, if you want to talk about maybe some of the other elements of this regarding what's in the recommendation.
Well, as far as the energy conservation goes, we're going to change out the ceilings in the office area when we do the remodeling, and we'll go with energy efficient LED lighting. There is a separate unit that takes care of the HVAC on the office area, and now is the time to replace it. It's original with the building. So there's going to be some energy savings there. Adding the vestibule out front, we'll add a vapor barrier or air barrier break to enhance energy. So
I guess my question was more global. How does this make it on the agenda and not the rest of the schools or our full facility plan?
I think because this has been an ongoing conversation. Steve and I've talked about this particular project. It was a conversation that actually initiated, Ralph was here with the school. So it's been something that's really been in the development. Steve has been addressing some of these issues at other schools already in the past few years, and this was really kind of an appropriate time to do it with this particular school.
Okay. I still feel the same way. I told you I've been sitting here for 9 years and I've never heard. I've That's fine.
It's been moved, it's been approved, so we just need a roll call. Thank you.
Romberg?
Yes.
Fielden?
Yes.
Wonky?
Yes.
Price?
Yes.
Crotty?
No.
Yench?
Aye.
Fitzgerald?
Thank you, motion carries. Thank you, and next we will go to a number of items for discussion with action, and I will turn it over to Superintendent. First one is substitute rates of pay.
Annually, the district administration reviews the rates of pay we pay for various substitute positions in our school district. Recommendations for increases were provided to the Board of Education at the April 7th Board of Education meeting. That was done by our Chief Human Resources Officer, Carol Hetman. If there are any additional questions, we can entertain those at this time.
Okay. Any comments or questions on 10.01 substitute rates of pay? There were the two classifications, I recall.
I move approval of item 10.01, substitute rates of pay for 2014-15.
We have a motion and a second for substitutes rates of pay for 2014-2015. Any additional comments or questions? Ms. Bell?
Romberg?
Yes.
Fitzgerald? Aye. Wonky?
Yes.
Yench?
Aye.
Crotty?
Yes.
Price?
Yes.
Fielden?
Yes.
Great, motion carries. Next agenda item, certified staffing allocation plan, high school.
At the April 7th Board of Education meeting, Assistant Superintendent for Secondary Education Bob Ross presented to the Board of Education overall high school and district special education staffing projections for the 2014-2015 school year. If there are any additional questions, Mr. Ross or I would be happy to answer those at this time.
Okay. Again, we had a detailed discussion on this last meeting, which is probably why there aren't a lot of questions now. Motion, please.
I move to approve 10.02 uncertified staffing allocations plan for the high school.
Second.
A motion and a second for the certified staffing allocation plan for the high school. Ms. Bell, please.
Crotty?
Yes.
Fielden?
Yes.
Romberg?
Yes.
Wonky?
Yes.
Yench?
Aye.
Fitzgerald?
Aye.
Price?
Yes.
Motion carries. Would my colleagues be amenable to 10.03 and 10.04 being moved together? Would that work for everyone? We had those discussions. Okey doke. May I have a motion? And that is for the second reading of policy 7.190, student discipline, and also the second reading of 7.240, co-curricular participation.
I move approval of 10.03, second reading policy 7.190, and 10.04, second reading policy 7.240.
Second.
Great. We have a motion and a second for the second reading for policy for student discipline and co-curricular participation. Any other comments or questions? Susan, sorry. I'm sorry. Kristen, looking at Susan.
No, I just wanted to say thank you again to Bob for working on this committee. It was my first time to participate in the committee for the co-curricular and the discipline, and also to highlight the work of the committee. I thought it was really helpful, the suggestions that we received from the folks that were in the committee. I don't know how it normally goes, but there were a number of changes that had been already thought through, but there were additional ones that were made because of the feedback from the community. I thought there was some really good thinking about how to really get at some of the problems that we were looking at. So I just wanted to commend that. And
it's a very active, engaged
group. It was great.
Group.
I just wanted to mention that. Thank you.
It's a great committee. Okie doke. So Ms. Bell, roll call, please.
Yench?
Aye.
Price?
Yes.
Fitzgerald?
Aye.
Romberg?
Yes.
Fielden?
Yes.
Wonky?
Yes.
Crotty?
Yes.
Great, motion carries. 10.05 is a little long-winded, so just bear with me a second. It's a resolution supplementing and amending the resolution determining to proceed with the solicitation of bids for purchase and cancellation of certain of the general obligation school building bonds, Series 2.08, I'm sorry, 2008, of our School District 203. And we've talked about this before. It gives some latitude to our chief. Well,
yeah, as Ms. Romberg had said, this is a topic of conversation we've had over a number of Board of Education meetings regarding the potential repurchase of bonds. The board had previously passed a resolution authorizing the chief financial officer to solicit bids for the purchase and cancellation of certain general obligation bonds out of Series 2008. The resolution before the Board of Education tonight is to really amend that resolution as had been previously adopted, granting authority to the CFO under parameters set by the Board of Education. Brad can answer any questions you may have at this time.
Exactly. Any questions, board members? Okay, a motion, please.
I move approval of 10.05 as presented.
Second.
Awesome. We have a motion and a second for 10.05 for the resolution for the repurchasing of bonds. Ms. Bell, please.
Fitzgerald.
Aye.
Wanke.
Yes.
Fielden.
Yes.
Romberg.
Yes.
Yench.
Aye.
Crotty.
Yes.
Price.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you. And now on our agenda, if people are following on the World Wide Web, Career 203 Committee recommendations. We had staff here doing this again.
Consistent with the language in our collective bargaining agreement with NUEA, NUEA members and district administration met for the purpose of reviewing the Career 203 implementation. Our Director of Career 203, Gina Herman, and Chief Human Resources Officer, Carol Hetton, presented recommendations for change that came forward from that committee. So if there's any additional questions from the board at this time, I do believe Gina's here somewhere. There she is.
Great.
Okay, and Carol's here also. So any questions that the board may have, we can address those.
I move approval of Career 203 committee recommendations as presented.
Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second, and we always have time for questions and comments. Go ahead.
I just had one question. We had talked quite a bit at the last meeting. Are you right here? Okay. We had talked quite a bit at the last meeting about a number of the different ideas for courses and that kind of thing. I wondered if, we've talked a lot about the different trainings that we'll be working on with the upcoming with differentiation and all these different areas. Do you foresee anything that would be utilized by any of these courses that could be utilized in training additional staff, or are they all teacher directed? Will they all be courses for teachers, or would we ever work with some of our teachers to work on courses with regard to assistance or anything like that?
Right now, Career 203 focuses on all certified staff, but we work closely with learning services and technology when we're developing things all the time.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Question. And I've heard this from a number of board members, and I know, Jeannie, you've heard this before, and Carol, the collaboration of the bargaining group, and Mark Bailey's here, and it's just a wonderful group of 12 of you that really put your heads together, and I know we're all very appreciative of that. So thank you so much. Any other comments or questions? Sure.
Just appreciate so much the recommendations and the changes that have been made, because they're very logical and present it well. And so having been an educator, I can appreciate the detail involved. So thank you for all that you've done. And I just think that it's so exciting because it's so cutting edge and far above what other districts are doing. So thank you for your time and dedication. And I know it's been a long process, and it's just great to see it coming to a head and letting teachers get involved in it. So thank you.
Okay, we already have a motion and a second, and great discussion and questions, so thank you all. And Ms. Bell, please.
Wanke.
Yes.
Yench.
Aye.
Crotty.
Yes.
Price.
Yes.
Romberg.
Yes.
Fielden.
Yes.
Fitzgerald.
Aye.
Motion carries. Our next agenda item, 10.07, instructional assistance recommendation, resolution authorizing the dismissal of educational support personnel.
At the April 7 Board of Education meeting, you heard a recommendation from the administration regarding how we propose to reutilize and redeploy staff to provide a system of instructional support for all students. The administration believes this system of support will be more responsive to the learning needs of our students than our current system allows us to be. The system of support we propose is based on collaboration. The proposal provides more authentic opportunities for adults in our classrooms to work collaboratively to meet the needs of our students. Flexibility. The proposed system requires classroom response to students as learning occurs, and the relationship to the Rising Star School improvement process. Both the Board of Education and Administration have received several emails from concerned individuals regarding this proposal, and I think it's important to address just a couple of points. First, this proposal does not abandon or eliminate support for early literacy development. Second, this proposal does not abandon or eliminate the opportunity to provide enrichment for students when appropriate. Once a decision is made regarding proposal before the board, we'll have a better opportunity to more clearly define how we've been providing the instructional support in grades 3 through 5 with an emphasis on grade 3. At this time, I'd like to invite our Chief Academic Officer, Jen Hester, to speak further about this recommendation. Our Assistant Superintendent for Elementary Education, Kitty Ryan, and Deputy Superintendent Kane Osborne, and others, if necessary, will support the presentation and the information Jen brings forward. Jen?
Thank you. Good evening, members of the board. I'm going to provide a brief summary of the proposed model for the instructional support by starting with our students and describing how this model is designed to be responsive to our students' emerging learning needs. The district administration and some of our principals have shared our new Rising School improvement process on several occasions. I'm I'm going to begin by relating the new learning support model to key improvement indicators in the Rising Star improvement process. That Rising Star improvement process requires school staff members to form teams to collaborate for improvement. After discussing the Rising Star improvement process, I'll talk about how we collaborate for kids using what Rising Star calls instructional teams, or what you have probably heard us talk about is professional learning communities. I'll explain the essential cycle of the PLC and its importance to our proposed learning support model. Then, I'll move to discuss the learning supports and responding to kids' needs. That will include a discussion of the collaborative role of all of the adults in responding to kids using that PLC cycle, and specifically, I'll highlight the role of the classroom teacher and the proposed instructional assistant model. I'll end by summarizing the benefits to our students offered by the proposed learning support model and the role of the instructional assistants. Next slide, please. In the presentation on April 7th, Mr. Osborne shared the laws of school improvement developed by Dr. Joseph Murphy. Mr. Osborne highlighted several of the laws of school improvement that support the way in which we are proposing to engage the instructional assistants in our new model. The graphic on the left is what the district administrators and principals refer to as our comprehensive system of practice. As a total administrative team, our goal is to apply the laws of school improvement through the comprehensive system of practice. I'm going to use that graphic to walk us through the new model for integrating learning support services. Let's go to that graphic, and if you take a look at the very center, you'll see our vision for District 203, building a passion for lifelong learning. But behind that vision is a picture of many students. So if we work from the center of that model, thinking about where our kids are, our school improvement process and best practice require that teachers are responsive to students and shift and change instruction as learning occurs. When teachers respond to kids, it means that they build strong relationships with them. We've learned a lot from Dr. Murphy and a lot of our work that we've talked to you about with culturally responsive practices. And one of the first things that we've learned is that relationship between the teacher and the student is incredibly important. Our teachers need to know their students inside of school, of course, but they absolutely need to know something about them and what happens outside of school. However, our business is schools, and the teachers also need to know their students very deeply on an academic basis. To do that, they use frequent assessments to know them, and then they vary the presentation of the curriculum. They can vary the ways in which students can show what they know. The teachers can hit the gas pedal when they need to. They can take their foot off of the gas pedal and slow down, or they can take a different road if necessary. The model of instructional support proposed is responsive to our students. It supports our new literacy and math curriculums. It's not based on a separate curriculum or a separate program. It's not based on separate lesson plans. It's based on those that derive and support our curriculum. The support happens in the context of the classroom, or if necessary, it can move outside of the classroom or into other spaces. With this new model of instructional support, the classroom teachers gain the direct support of a well-trained assistant to support them in making shifts in instruction. Together, the classroom teachers and assistants can observe students making progress and transfer their knowledge. So again, if we go back to that graphic, we have the students in the center, and what I've described is how we respond to students, and specifically the culturally responsive practices that we've been sharing with you over the past 2 years. Now I'm going to move more deeply into the school improvement process, that Rising Star, and working in that system of practice. So in our Rising Star school improvement process, and I know many of the board members have looked at the indicators that the schools have to address in that school improvement process. Those indicators are organized in accordance with the rigorous and guaranteed curriculum. The indicators are organized under high-quality instruction and the moves that schools have to do to provide that instruction. They're very specific to a balanced assessment system. That includes the state and the state assessments that we have to give, our accountability assessments. It includes our assessments that are embedded within the curriculum, and then it also includes those very important formative teacher assessments in the classroom. Our indicators are also organized and coded. It says RTI, response to intervention, but very clearly in the research and in the indicators support the federal and state move to a multi-level or multi-tiered system of support. And then lastly, there are many indicators in the Rising Star process that speak to what we call educator quality, but really clearly outlines the principal's responsibility and the teacher's responsibility and all personnel in the building for professional learning. When we think of the new model that's being proposed for instructional support, I'd really like to focus on the clustering of some of those indicators and how they support this change in movement. First of all, many of the indicators call upon schools to use data. We've talked about the balanced assessment system many times, but basically what they're asking is that our teachers and the entire teams have to ask, where is a student, where are they going, and how am I going to close the gap, or how am I going to enrich or excel for this student? There are also indicators that directly refer to instructional support and how to pull in and use the instructional supports. That means that we are able to use instructional supports for that acceleration and that intervention. But I think something that's really important to note, the research associated with these indicators really links our first move to the core curriculum. And when I say core curriculum, I'm talking about the curriculum that's board approved and that's core. And of course in literacy and math we have common core standards that those curriculums are built off of. But in the Rising Star process, our first line of defense is more of the core or enriching the core. Our second line of defense is always targeted from the core, and that doesn't matter whether you're providing intervention or whether you're providing acceleration and enrichment. And our third place that we move is different from the core. So if you think about what we're proposing, we want to stay in that place of more in the core, then move to targeted from the core. And then after that, then we consider means of different from the core. So an example of different from the core now is our gifted programming for both math and literacy. And then lastly, what I want to focus on with those indicators is the call for teams. Now, two very critical levels of teams. One is that school improvement team, but the second level is that professional learning community. So let's go back to that system of practice again. We're going to move again with starting from our students, embracing our students with culturally responsive practices. But the next thing that we have to get very targeted, very methodical, and systematic about is implementing that professional learning community. And that means that collaboration is just no longer a casual circumstance, but it's actually a planned and calculated move in improving student achievement. So if we imagine the students in the center of our system of practice as an entire first grade class, our school improvement process requires that instructional teams collaborate to achieve results for students. Because that PLC is so important in our new instructional support model, I want to take the time to talk about the purpose of a PLC and how a PLC functions. And to do that, I'm going to refer to the work of Richard DeFore and Rebecca DeFore, Robert Eckert, and Thomas Manny. So a PLC is a collaborative team whose members work interdependently to achieve common goals for which members are mutually accountable. Focus on that word interdependent. That means that we're dependent on each other. In collaboration, it means that it takes all of us to collaborate to make that improvement for our students happen. We're mutually accountable, everybody, no matter what your job is. If you're the principal, if you're the teacher, if you're an instructional assistant, you are accountable for achievement and growth and learning, an achievement that is substantial. A PLC engages in an ongoing process in which the educators work collaboratively in recurring cycles of collective inquiry and action research to achieve better results for the students whom they serve. Professional learning communities operate under the assumption that the key to improving learning for students is continuous job-embedded learning for educators. And that comes directly from Learning by Doing from the DeFores. A key to a PLC is that they're never satisfied with the status quo. They're always searching for better results, and they engage in an ongoing cycle of gathering evidence of current levels of student learning. They develop strategies and ideas to build on the strengths and address the weaknesses in that learning. They implement those strategies and ideas, and then they come back again. And they analyze the impact of the changes to discover what's effective and then what's not working. They apply that continuous and new learning that they've gained in the next cycle as they engage in that PLC process again. I think it's the DeFores do a very nice job of summing the professional learning community process up for us in 4 questions. The first question that teachers in a professional learning community or any other individuals who are participating in that community ask are, what do the students need to know and be able to do? And to answer that question, they go directly to the curriculum and then to assessment data. The second question that they ask is, how will we know that they know it? In other words, how will they assess that knowledge and skills? The third question is, what will we do if they already know it? And what will we do if they don't know it? Those 4 questions are asked in the planning process, in the PLC process, prior to the instruction happening. In the new instructional support model, our assistants will participate in this essential formative assessment and instructional planning cycle with the classroom teachers. And then this leads us to the very important discussion of the roles that the teachers or the assistants can play. So again, I'm going to ask you to go back to the center of that graphic where our students are in the center. And we've discussed the means in which collaboration, or I've discussed the means in which collaboration happens. But now we need to think who. What are people's roles in collaborating? So I'm going to start with the principal, because the principal is the instructional leader of each and every one of our buildings. And they have that tremendous responsibility of monitoring the overall curriculum implementation in the building. We can develop curriculum and provide the best practice of implementation, but ultimately the principal has to monitor it. The principal is ultimately responsible for monitoring the implementation of assessments and then the student progress on those assessments. Our principals have the responsibility of knowing the overall picture of which students in that first grade class are meeting standards, how many are not meeting the standards, how many are exceeding them. They encourage teachers to use the PLC process to move our students forward, and they do that through implementing that Rising Star school improvement process. Our principals are also responsible for making sure that the professional learning happens at the building level, for creating opportunities through inviting teachers to work with the learning support coach, through planning very strategically their institute days and their professional learning, and encouraging ongoing collaboration and sharing with teachers on a daily basis. Let's move to our teachers. Ultimately, our teachers are responsible for implementing the curriculum. They're responsible for planning instruction for our students and responding to students by using assessment data and monitoring their students' progress. Our teachers are very capable. Our teachers are very, very capable in meeting students' needs across the continuum. And they have extensive they've had extensive professional learning in our math curriculum and in the resources for our math curriculum. We are extremely fortunate, I've said it again and again, that there are multiple opportunities to differentiate through that curriculum. Our teachers will also, it already started in March, have the extensive professional learning on our literacy curriculum and the implementation of our curriculum. Both curriculums have pre- and post assessments built into them, a foundational principle of differentiation, so that teachers can start instruction where the learner is performing and move them to where they need to go. If we move on to other very important professionals in the building, we have reading specialists in our buildings. We have related service personnel, special education teachers, speech and language pathologists. We have LRC directors and the social workers. They all, when called upon, play an important role in that PLC process and play very important roles in serving our students. And finally, let's move to our assistants. And our assistants play a very valuable role in contributing to the proposed model. Our assistants are very skilled. Our assistants that we have today are very skilled. Our assistants in the new model will be able to work on building prior knowledge for our students. They will support our students in building them toward independence, and then also knowing when to step away and giving our students time to be independent and not always be served by an adult in the building. All of our staff members in the professional learning community will collaborate utilizing the laws of school improvement in the continuous embedded school improvement process. So everybody has a critical, important role. It's a well-defined and research role, the professional learning community. So now I'm going to transition to the closing of my remarks and summarize the benefits that were shared on April 7th and that are also available in the frequently asked questions document. Our students benefit from teachers and assistants' ability to collaborate and respond to their needs more immediately. The teacher can identify the shifts in the curriculum and instruction that are needed and quickly involve the assistant in the plans for intervention and enrichment. There'll be more hours of learning support for our students with the proposed model. Classroom support is provided in collaboration and occurs directly within the school improvement process. We will have the opportunity to more closely connect student learning to a rigorous and challenging core curriculum, remembering that it's always more of the core first. And the new model recognizes that students don't always fall into the category of enrichment and intervention at all times. They flexibly move as they encounter content and need a system of support that is as flexible as they are. And with that, our full administrative team will entertain questions from the board.
So I just want to thank Jen for a lot of detail that I don't know if I just wasn't grasping or if we hadn't gotten. I know that Kitty had given us some of that detail, but I think hearing it again and again, just like our students, we need to hear it a few times to be able to digest
or
it.
More,
yeah, or more than a few times. So it's taken me a good 3 weeks to wrap my head around a lot of my questions. So thank you for your presentation and your detail. And thank you, Kane and Kitty, for what you presented last week that got me started to digest some of this. I also want to thank the community for tons of questions that were so well thought out. And I have a few of them still that are my questions and are questions from some of our community members. One of my biggest concerns, and it might seem like a little detail, but one of my biggest concerns is we talked about capping the instructional assistance. And my concern is the effect that that's going to have on schools that already have enrollment assistants in each of the classrooms. So, for instance, if we have a school that already has enrollment assistants in, say, 3 sections, they will not be getting. I know that those enrollment assistants will be trained as instructional. Yeah, it's a lot of verbiage. Instructional assistants, but they won't be getting an additional support. And at the same time, we are taking the support from enrichment and leave away from them. So that's a concern for a number of schools, I think, fall into that category.
Mrs. Wonke, I just want to make sure that I understand your question. So your concern is that for a 4-section grade level, where we have 2 enrichment assistants, then pardon me, I don't mean enrichment assistants. I meant-
Enrollment assistants.
Yes, enrollment assistants now, or maybe even 4. Next year, if the grade level stays at those same numbers, would they have the enrollment assistance provided to them? Is that what you're asking?
No, I'm asking
Okay.
that I know that they'll have the enrollment assistance because that hasn't changed. What I'm saying is that my understanding is that they will not have an additional instructional assistant because they already have the.
No, I don't think that. I think I'm understanding, Mrs. Wanke. No, they would have the 2 instructional assistants that grade level is chartered to have. Plus, they'd have the enrollment assistants due to the number of students in each classroom, by classroom.
So if we had, okay, your scenario is 4-section school.
Okay.
If we had 4 enrollment assistants already in those 4, 1 in each section, we're still going to have 2 instructional assistants? That was not how it was presented before, I believe.
If the enrollment, it depends, Mrs. Wanke, if the enrollment reaches the level in each one of those classrooms.
Mhm.
So do we have 28 students in each classroom?
That's her assumption, yes.
Right.
Okay, yes.
So there'll be
There would be the availability of
Instructional
6.
assistants will be assigned first. The enrollment assistants are response to the enrollment that comes sometimes over the course of a year.
Mhm.
We have enrollment assistants that we add as the year goes on.
Right.
Right, I understand that.
So consistent with our board
But
policy.
one does not replace the other, was your question.
Right, so they'll, okay.
So if you have a 4
So they would have 6.
Potentially
grade
they
level-
would.
That grade level in that scenario would have 6.
Potentially they would.
Okay.
Next question.
Would you want somebody else to go?
Well, I'll just have you ask one more, and
Okay.
then we'll go to the next person.
So,
or if you want to think about one, think about it, and we'll go to a next person.
Okay.
Okay. Another question?
All right, I'm going to take the other side of that question, which is to do a scenario of a school that has 3 sections. Okay, so we've got the 4-section. So the 3-section schools would have, as I understand the proposal, 1 instructional assistant for 3 class sections. Some of those 3-section schools might have additional enrollment assistants, and so they would have additional help. But if they did not, that would be 1 person for the 3 classrooms, where in some schools they would have 2 to 2. You know, like if they were in a 2-section school that had high enrollment, they would have 2 or potentially even 3. You might have a school where there are 3 sections in a grade level with only 1 instructional assistant. So I realize that you can't so directly portion out the time. So I'm not trying to say, how does the 5 hours work? Because I realize that in some of these schools, and what we hope would be all of the schools actually, that they would be working across the grade level, and so they might be able to give 5 hours to the students in each of those classes by working in grade level collaboration. However, if they were not able to have enough time, I want to know the flexibility of the administration to provide additional assistance as needed, whether it would be hours or whether it would be half-time, if a school is in a situation where their school improvement team feels that they need additional support.
Right.
I think this model has to be responsive to needs. I think the instructional assistants will be assigned consistently based on the parameters that we've identified.
Right.
And the enrollment assistants, for example, will be identified as established by policy already and is contractually bargained. So absolutely, I think what we like about the model that we're proposing is the opportunity for schools to be really flexible with its implementation.
Okay.
How grade levels work together, perhaps how cross-grade levels work together as well. We'll leave this to the principals or school improvement teams and their teams to really determine the utilization of their staff.
Okay, so continuing that, I have a little follow-on in terms of the flexibility. I know that as I've done research as to many of the things that the schools are doing, they're doing really exciting things. We have some schools that are taking grade levels as a whole, exactly what you're talking about in your PLC, but taking those grade levels as a whole, they're breaking them down into very small groups. They're utilizing as many people as they can throw into that system to try to get those groups down as small as they can so that they can really impact on the grade level, whether it's at the high end or the low end or the middle, exactly where their students need to be taken. So in this situation, if you have a school that is working very well with their PLC and planning and potentially moving it out like that, number one, that doesn't have to change, which I know the answer is yes, because I've heard that already. But number two, what if they have ideas, and I think Dan was alluding to this as well, but I just want to hear it again. If they have ideas like, let's use the grade level assistants, say they are in that situation where they have only one, and so there's 3 in the school for those K through 2. Can we funnel them to the one end and say, during literacy, we need all of our assistants for this, half-hour block. We're going to funnel them all down there. And also, could they, as a part of that, say, I want this instructional assistant, because they have really good strengths in this area, to work on the enrichment side in K2, as long as they're working it as a part of their school improvement process and their collaborative model, can they have that flexibility to use those assistants the way they need?
They can definitely do that, and I'm not sure that I highlighted in the opening presentation too the importance of understanding that if everyone works together in the way that you're describing, you assign the person to work with that group or with those students who is most appropriate. So if we think about enrichment, if we're worried about any type of loss of support there, I actually think we gain. Because we have the ability of saying, okay, the classroom teacher for explicit instruction purposes and moving that student to the next level of learning is really going to focus and target in on the advanced learners. But yet we might have kids who are performing, just fine and on level, who are in a place where they need, practice at that point. And that's the appropriate place to, really utilize the talents and skills of an assistant. So it lets us really address the learning needs by utilizing the staff as appropriate.
Susan. Sorry, Michael.
Sorry. That's all right. Getting back to LEAP a little bit and K-LEAP, can you talk a little bit, because we've been encouraged to talk about read the final report for 2012-13. Can you talk a little bit about how many students were served and what the outcomes were for students in the 2012-2013 year?
Yes.
Yeah, that's fine. Sorry, I didn't surprise you.
In the 2012-2013 school year in LEAP, which is the first grade model, 190 students were served. For K-LEAP in the 2012-2013 school year, 25 students were served.
And what was their success rate? How did they do in K-LEAP? What were the outcomes after?
Okay. I am referencing the end of year report, and I am referencing the number of students. The report actually gives total numbers for all kindergarten services, including Early Start, K-LEAP, and SAIL. It provides numbers for first grade, which is LEAP, and then it provides a total for second grade, which is LIFT, which is this was provided to us through the LEAP program.
July 15th, 2013 for anyone, and it was provided by LEAP.
Yes. The total number of students from all of those programs for the 2012-2013 school year was 318. Mrs. Price, you asked about the success of those programs. When we look at the data, what we see is that they're not serving our students to the level that we would expect. I'm going to go to LEAP first, and LEAP has reported most of their data and their growth. Now, all students are growing. The students grow. It's just, are they growing enough for the intensity that program is intended to provide? And then also, are they growing enough? LEAP refers to the students as students between the 20th and 50th percentile. In the 2012-2013 school year, the Project LEAP students who were released, out of those students, 28.7% were not on grade level when they are released, And for students reported as being weak on grade level or not on grade level, that was 40.4% not released. At the end of the year, so if students were seen in the first wave of that program, their services would have ended sometime in the first semester. At the end, so then the data is collected again at the end of the year. At the end of the year in that school year, 56% of the students are reported as being weak on grade level or not on grade level, and 20.6% as not on grade level. So that's the most recent data from the program, and we have gone back and analyzed several years of trend data.
Thank you.
Susan?
I know the program's been around for a long time and is very ingrained in our community. And, you know, I really, you know, the world's changed since it started. You know, I remember when we talked a long time ago about, you know, students bringing their own devices, and that seemed just impossible, and now it seems very probable, and we do it, and it works, and the teachers handle all that. And our demographics have changed a lot since it started as well. Can you talk a little bit? So I didn't understand how this whole model would work. I went to bed last night and I got back up and I emailed one of the principals who had presented last time that I got to watch on the web, thanks to one of my board members who suggested that. She answered me before 6 a.m. this morning and invited me to come visit her school. So it was certainly not set up for me as a board member to see, and I was in there before 9 o'clock this morning. So I got to see a full-day kindergarten class broken up into 5 groups with supports, different supports all over the district, helping to support the students. There was so much enrichment going on and so much help with the students that didn't understand things. You know, there were kids on one side stretching and chopping sentences. There were kids reading on their own with their fingers, so they've been told what to do and they're reading with their fingers. There were kids projecting what was going to happen next in the enrichment part. I mean, it was really amazing to see all this going on in the same classroom at the same time. So then, you know, it allowed me to buy into the idea of how this could work. And then I asked the question, what do you do when, you know, we have new this was a very seasoned teacher that just, you know, was going through this in literacy this morning. What do you do and how do you provide supports when you don't I mean, we have great teachers, but I can't do everything either. I can't whistle and I can't wink. So I can't do those things. I wish I could do that loud whistle, but I can't do it. I've tried lots of times. I mean, there's certain things that certain people just are not good at. How will these teachers and these aides be trained to support it? And you used the words well-trained assistants and planned and calculated PLCs. Can you tell me what that looks like and how that will be measured?
Okay. You're talking about the professional learning communities. Okay. So for the professional learning communities, everyone has, all of our teams have been trained in the Rising Star School Improvement process. And that's a key foundational part of that. But the second move is then training in the professional learning community. We have been working with a consultant on implementing professional learning communities in our elementary schools. Not all of our schools have had the intensive training yet, but are in the process of receiving that training. And that's on the professional learning community side. So then we talk about the instructional assistants, which I think was the second half of your question. We have already begun the process of looking in or identifying very specifically, or we have identified very specifically in our math curriculum, where we actually feel that we need the support and actually could provide the professional learning within the math curriculum. For the literacy curriculum, two of the areas that have been specifically identified, one is word study, And in the word study, we have mapped out a systematic scope and sequence, which is consistent with what you've seen with the National Reading Panel studies. And then we've also purchased a resource. And then we've already begun the work of providing professional learning, but we'll provide a more intense. Our reading specialists are a big lead and support in providing that professional learning on the word study. And the second part in the literacy curriculum is very specific to comprehension and implementing a curriculum that is adds an element to the strategies-based curriculum that we have. And that's all the features of key ideas and support and the author's craft. For the enrichment, the professional learning will really focus around abstract thinking and complexity and depth, and ways in which lessons can be supported for the enrichment. Now, I want to be really honest about any limitations with this. It's an evolving practice. It's a dynamic, it's a dynamic environment, and the training for the assistants will be grouped and categorized and then provided in levels. So basically, we provide like level 1 training, then level 2, and so on.
So I'll tell you, like, just for me personally, the implementation part makes me really uncomfortable. Like, that's the part that I stick on. Looking at it in this classroom today, boy, it blossomed. I mean, that was just incredible. But I don't, like Roger just talked about the key metrics that they'll use for success. What are we using?
You know what, I was going to respond to the first part.
Oh, sorry.
I
know
metrics
I always
then?
do that.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. But because I think that's really important.
I get really passionate about it.
I think a lot of the emails and things have expressed a lot of anxiety around implementation. And this isn't, it isn't a program. It isn't a program, with a beginning and end and a package. And I'm not saying that the digital learning is either. It's an evolving process. Some of this stuff happened grassroots in the school, and it's hard to go back. Or when a school calls and says, all right, so we went ahead, and this was 2 years ago, and we started to begin to purchase the Words Their Way resource, and we begin implementing it. And now we're using our reading specialists differently, and can I use other assistants differently as well? Can I use assistants in this model? So that's already, that's more what's happened with word study, because we didn't have that. It's been a grassroots where people are already laying the groundwork and implementing it differently. When I think about a school, that I was in and had a similar experience to you, is where already they recruited all the other personnel to work together and move into that model. We have several schools that are well on their way and that are already doing it. And I would say all of our schools have pieces in place. So for us to go back or say just you 2 schools do it, it's an evolving process that really is consistent with response to intervention. It is, in the federal legislation since 2006 and the changes in that since then. It is, consistent with school improvement process. So that's where and the other thing too is we can't think of the professional learning as separate. The professional learning will come through the context of the math curriculum and through the context of the literacy. If we do differentiation on its own, or if we do just literacy intervention or enrichment on its own, it has to be embedded in the entire curriculum and process.
Could you, we got really stuck on the word push in. So now everyone thinks there's 50 people in a small little classroom. And could you maybe just go over that a little bit, because that's been confusing?
I really think that we didn't consider the impact of those words carefully enough. When we talk about what we're really talking about collaboration, and what we're really talking about is our integrated services. So certainly you're going to have students that are going to stay in the classroom. Certainly you're going to have students that are going to go out to the LRC to work. They might go into another smaller classroom for instruction. When we talk about push in, push out. What we're really talking about is flexibility and designing instruction to meet the needs of students wherever that instruction is most appropriately housed and changing.
And I know from my beginning work in the district of working with our reading specialists, when I started talking about collaboration and responsive practices, one of the first things some of them said is, we've been there, we've done we've done pull out, and we've done push in. And push in is distractive to the kids, and I said, we're not talking about either. We're talking about collaborative teaching, and there are models of collaborative teaching, and that is what this is about. And not one or the other.
So if this is our new way of life, how are we going to judge it? And what metrics, how are you assigning those?
So I'm going to go back. I sound like a broken record to the school improvement process. We have our assessment system right now. And within that assessment system, and there's even been more work that's been done on how we first screen kids, so we can learn about who they are academically and both socially and emotionally. And then within that balance assessment that Mr. Waranga keeps talking about as well, we have our curriculum-based assessments and we have our teacher assessments. But in looking at the matrix for this, it's about student growth. And it's about looking at the growth on the district measures that have already been set up.
Can I? I would just like to ask a quick question. The way I look at this model is I really believe since our last meeting, I'm only hoarse because I have talked to everyone that would listen. It's the end of the year, so I have been to a lot of schools with a number of my colleagues. And the conversation of support and enrichment has come up everywhere. The way I look at this model, it's a systemic model. It's not a program, as you've said. So an interesting analogy I've used, and this is we started this conversation with your predecessor, Kathy Duncan, sitting right here 3 years ago when we were talking about all-day kindergarten. And what would we do and what would we do for early literacy? And there were the questions that came up right then. This is not new. And certainly the graphic that's on the wall, we've seen that a number of times. In our superintendent's review, he has that, the graphic. It was presented to us in March for school improvement plans and also a year ago that I recall. But let me bring you real quickly, if I can digress for just a second. We go into the schools, and it used to be there were tables in the LRCs for learning labs right in the LRCs. And I remember thinking, how would we, because people like Roger and his staff and the education's, the instructional supports in technology would say, we're going to push this all out to the classroom. Me as one board member thought, are you kidding me? How can the teachers take on one more thing? You are bringing what? They're now going to be in charge of technology too? So now I'm in Prairie last week for their wonderful ribbon cutting, and I thought, wonder if those tables are still in the LRC, where the students all came to the LRC to sit down with an expert, with a trained instructional aide that knew just that. So the teacher, they went there. Those tables are down. There's no computer labs in LRCs anymore. The teachers can handle this. So I'm getting to the end of my story. So now we're at the awards ceremony last week, and not only one, but two schools walk across the stage with this whole group of people. The instructional support assistance group wins an award at the school. So I guess, it was like a whole evolution for me. It worked, and all the technology worked, pushing it out to the classrooms. Of course the teachers are in charge, but they have tremendous supports there. And I guess that's in the analogy I look at here, because my thought is we talk about the learning coaches for all the new teachers, and I remember thinking, how will this ever be done? How will we ever get so that the teacher is now in charge of all the technology and everything else that person has to do? And sure enough, it will work. I do have one quick question, then I'll move on to my colleagues. A question that was asked of me on a couple of emails. Walk for me the LEAP tutor is in a class how many hours a day, how many days a week, and how much is student contact time? Or is that not a fair question right now? Do you have that information?
I think I do.
Okay.
And Ms. Ryan can jump in if she hears anything that doesn't sound accurate. So the LEAP tutors, they're not in the class. They work with the student outside the classroom, one-on-one, and their sort of work day is 3.75 hours, okay, per day. The LEAP assistants, the LEAP assistants to be, not the peer tutors for LEAP. That's a different category, okay, but the 40 LEAP assistants. And then calculated based on the prep time compared to the student one-on-one working with students. Out of those 3.75, they're working with the students 1.875 hours a day. Sorry for the decimals, but it was easier when we did it aggregately than to end up with decimals. So each LEAP tutor, 1.875 hours a day with students. And to approximate it, it's 35-minute sessions with approximately 3 students a day.
Okay, 3 students a day, and how much is that as a percentage of student contact of that whole day? I'm an accountant. You have to go.
I did it aggregately, but roughly
It's
give or take 50%.
50%, yeah.
So 50% time, 50% of the time. I want to be able to answer these.
And that's for the LEAP assistants.
I understand.
Okay.
So these are the ones that in the pull-out program, the LEAP assistant that's with this individual one-on-one, 3.7 hours a day, 5 days a week, half the time, 3.7 hours a day they're working.
5. Okay.
3.75, about half that time is actually with student contact. Okay, thank you. And the rest of my colleagues, do you have some questions? Please. How are we doing? Want to go on that side?
Yes, thank you.
Well, I wanted to say, you were waiting for a question. I'd asked Donna if she could hold her question and wait for a question. Thanks. You want to go ahead?
My turn? Okay. So we were promised at the last meeting that we would rethink third grade because the 3rd through 5th grade enrichment is losing some support. Well, I'm sorry. Enrichment is, I understand, K5, but K2 is getting the added advantage of the instructional assistance, but 3-5 is not necessarily. We were going to rethink that, so I haven't heard anything on that. Can
Right,
you
and we have
speak
been
to that?
rethinking that. Part of the decision on what that exactly looks like is contingent upon the recall and rehire process with the positions that are proposed for the release this evening. In terms of looking at what that looks like and hearing from the community who has spoke about that loss, we believe that we will be able to provide instructional assistance support for grades 3 through 5. It would be roughly equivalent to what they have right now by bringing back additional assistance to support grades 3 through 5. But we'll have a better sense of what that exactly looks like once we overall go through the process that we have proposed before the board right now.
So I'm hearing that they will have support. We just don't know at what amount.
We'll
or-
report back to the Board of Education on what that specifically looks like.
I
Correct.
guess what I heard, make sure I'm hearing correctly, that the support 3 through 5, I'm sorry, the enrichment 3 through 5 will be no less than it is right now.
Instructional support will be equivalent to the hours that we provide that right now, correct?
Okay, sounds good. Can I ask everyone, it's kind of hard to hear up here just the way the acoustics work, so if you could keep your internal conversations just a little bit lower. This is really important. I'm sure you know that. That's why you're here. So if you could just keep the back conversations a little lower or non-existent or go outside, I'd greatly appreciate it. Thanks so much.
I just want to go back to Susan's question because I want to make sure that I have the answer. And so I'm looking right at Tim because I know you're my answer person. So you spoke in the last meeting about a couple of different assessments that you wanted to look at in terms of the Fontes and Pinnell and the ISEL for looking at literacy. Jen has also spoken a little bit in terms of how we're going to evaluate this program, looking at the district's assessments. So I assume, and growth assessments you particularly mentioned. So I'm assuming that's our district assessments as well as our performance series. So these programs that we're talking about, LEAP and the enrichments, have produced some gains. You talked a little bit about the gains. In some cases significant, in some cases you're wishing for more. I'm gathering that. But regardless, do you believe, number one, that we can duplicate these gains in the new system? And number two, how are we able to show that? And how often are we able to take a look at it? Because obviously this is a new system that's being proposed. It's a big change, and we want to make sure as it rolls out that if we aren't, for example, hitting that target right away, we hit that and say, okay, this isn't quite the growth that we hoped, but we really are committed to making sure that we are able to get these kinds of growth. What can you tell me in that regard?
You know, the data we're going to examine, and just to give a little background of how we've gotten to this point with what we're doing data-wise, and this is generally our balanced data assessment system. So it's going to support what's being done here. You see it up on the graphic up in front, and it's part of what we're working on. To align to this, in early literacy, for instance, one of the things we've done recently is we've taken the state system for the ISIL assessments, and we've actually realigned how our procedures and protocols work with that system to completely align with the state system, so that when we work with the state data, the NPRs and things like that, it's actually aligned, because previous to working on aligning to the state system, we had our own protocols in place for the Illinois Snapshot of Early Literacy, and decided that we need to make sure we put in place the actual protocols that are being used by the state. So one of the things we're doing for data clarity and also data alignment is to make sure that we line up with the actual NPR system that's being done by the state, that will allow us to not only gauge how our students are doing internally in terms of how they're doing according to other students in the district, but also how they're doing across the state, and do those comparisons to see how they're growing. I have confidence because of the way the alignment of the instructional assistant model of being in the classroom and how we do formative assessment. Formative assessment is aligned by the classroom assessment and how the teachers are doing it. The teachers will have real-time data according to how they're working with their students as to how students are progressing along the way, and then they'll have interim regular benchmark data. For instance, as an example, our math assessment team just created in first grade unit exams that have rolled out this year that gives regular assessment data as to how our students are doing in that arena. We're working on the same sort of assessments and also in the literacy area now to get those interim benchmark assessments in place as well, so we can see the progress at regular intervals of how our students are doing. And that leads us all the way up to the top level, which is the annual accountability assessments, so that when we get to the PARC assessments and how we're measuring this regularly, we're going to see the progress of how our students they're making progress, because it's aligned in the whole system and based on what's happening in the classroom.
So you would expect us to, I'm just going to repeat back to you, you believe that you'll be able to see the same gains or better, but when will we see those? What will be our time frame that we will take a look at and say, okay, here's our, our annual accountability progress and our interim benchmarks, probably the interim benchmarks. Let's work on those, because annual might be May, or I don't know exactly what your time frame would be. But in terms of the interim benchmarks, how often will we be able to look at these and say, yes, we're doing what we expect. Yes, this system is serving our students. The integration of the curriculum and the instruction is working the way that we expect it to go. How often will we be able to see that?
The ISIL data is considered an interim benchmark, so that is being done. It's done at the beginning of the year to see where our students start at.
So we start.
And then we do it again in December to see where our students progress from there. And then we do it at the end of the year to see how they progress following that. Also, like I mentioned, with our math assessments, we actually have that data, and that's done each unit, so it's done on a very regular basis in terms of mathematics.
So you expect that moving forward with this system, that you would be able to utilize this data, and that our first report would be able to be as soon as December, so that we could say, okay, this is working to make the progress that we expect, or here's an area where we need to
grow. And as Jen mentioned earlier, and I need to also add in Fontes and Pinella, it's one of the things we also measure in our Mastery Manager system, but that's also done 3 times a year over the course of the years. But also, as Jen mentioned, that's how our school improvement teams are trained. They're trained to look at that data. And, under an old system, our data reviews were often done at a data spa at the beginning of the year. We looked the next year at that data again at the beginning of the year, and it usually was a few months into the year. And so we didn't, we were setting goals late into the year, and we were measuring things from 5-6 months ago. Our data teams for the school improvement Rising Star process are actually using that data in real time as it comes in and provide that data for them.
So Dan, help me understand, because when it works, I see it working really well. If it's not working perfectly, even though we're moving to Common Core, I am, and my colleagues as well, are never willing to leave a kid behind. Never, ever, ever. And make me feel better about that. I'm concerned. I mean, that's really where my sticking point is, because it's great if it works. It's great when it works. It's great when it works perfectly. When it doesn't, or the leader of the building is out, or there's a whole new team, or there's young teachers, or whatever it is, it just really scares me.
Okay, so I think the first thing I'll say is that the model that we have proposed and what we've been talking about here, and the focus on collaboration, the connection to the school improvement process, the use of data to drive what they're doing in the classroom, in my opinion, will better prepare us to ensure that we're addressing the needs of every kid within the classroom, rather than just certain populations of students within that classroom. It sets us up for the opportunity to really respond to whatever instruction is going on and make decisions about what each individual student needs at that time. As Jen said in her initial presentation, we see kids flow in and out of times when they need enrichment or they need additional support. So this allows us in our classrooms, the teams of teachers and assistants and other professionals within the building, to collaboratively look at data and information about our students to make those decisions on when it happens. So how do we ensure that that happens? First, we have principals who support this and believe this is right. And as we said, we've already seen the natural growth of this, or the emergence of this in many of our classrooms, in many of our schools across the district. So it begins with that instructional leadership, but ensuring, again, that we're providing the professional learning and growth and development for our teachers. We have a number of courses related to this topic of differentiation and understanding diverse learners that we're offering through Career 203 to our teachers this year in collaboration with North Central College, ensuring that we have built and provide the training necessary for the instructional assistants, so that training is ongoing. And that it's related to their work, that it's not just pull out separate, that it's all integrated. And I think that's the best way that we ensure that this will happen, is the complete integration of efforts of everything that we're doing, rather than programs or supports happening in isolation. This better pulls all of that support together. So when we talk about push in, that's what really what that push in is. It's pushing together all of the supports to ensure that students' needs are met.
If I can just piggyback back off of Susan Karate. But Susan is saying it's not working. We know it's not working because we don't have the student gains, right? So we have some students, or a group of students, or the new teacher, or not the new teacher, the very seasoned teacher, or whatever. We have reason to be concerned. What are the other supports that can help in this situation?
We were actually just having a great conversation about that earlier today, and so again, it begins with ensuring that our instructional leaders, our principals, and our teachers are there to support. But I want Kane, Jen, and Kitty to each talk about some of the things that we were talking about today when we were meeting in Kane's office, about all of those things related to Rising Star, the systems of practice on the PLC. Right. There's a number of things that we have in place to ensure that those supports are available.
Well, the one thing that I want to add, Dan, is, or Mr. Bridges, pardon me, is a strengthening and a evaluation system. I think the evaluation system that we have now is a good one, but we're going to be doing some extensive training and deep training in the Danielson model. And the Danielson model, combined with where we're going with Rising Star, allows the principal to go in and to really have that conversation with that teacher around, here's our goals, here's what I'm seeing you doing, here's the difference it's making for kids. So I think that definitely comes on as a very strong leg on this particular stool.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned the instructional leaders in the building and Rising Star, which was in our first year. And I commented, being new to the district, how impressive it was to see the principals collaborating around Rising Star this year. And I've already mentioned, if you go back to the December 2nd executive summary on Rising Star that's been provided, I had mentioned earlier that 7 schools already have in their Rising Star plans the indicator that is instructional teams review student learning. All teachers differentiate assignments in response to individual student performance on pre-test and other methods of assessment. That's already in 7 schools. In reviewing it, there's 2 other indicators that are really, really powerful in this regard. And one is instructional teams review student learning data to assess and make decisions about curriculum and instructional strategies. That's directly related to what we're talking about. And this other one, instructional teams review the results of unit pre-test, post-test, make decisions about the curriculum and instructional plans, and to flag students in need of intervention and students needing enhanced learning opportunities because of their early mastery of objectives. The thing to remember also about all these indicators is they're all research-based. When the schools choose this as an indicator, that means the school improvement teams have read the research related to that indicator, which tells you what you're supposed to do to achieve the indicator. So when they adopt it, they're then also saying, we're going to go out and do this. And so 12 of the elementaries have at least one of those indicators I've read. And the great thing about the collaboration that's already taken place that we see building and building among the principals is we come together regularly, including next Monday, to talk exactly about Rising Star and to engage in some form of professional learning among the principals. And with that is peer review, which we've done once already and we'll be doing again explicitly. So we're building on these things where they'll look at how those indicators are being implemented among each other. So the things that we've talked about starting to grow will be shared on a regular basis among those instructional leaders who are accountable to exactly what we're talking about.
And one of the things that I added to our conversation today was our learning support coaches. So our learning support coaches are providing professional learning, job embedded. They're co-teaching with teachers. They are engaging them in instructional planning. They're supporting the data review cycle. And they're really working on culturally responsive practices, both through the literacy and math curriculum. The data of them working with the teachers and what they've been doing is quite remarkable, and will continue to support this work.
Okey doke. More questions? Yep.
So I had a similar morning to you, Susan, only I spent time with an administrator, a building administrator, and I'm glad to hear that you said that this is happening already in every building, because that was what I learned today from an administrator that I spoke to about how they were using the performance-based testing and looking at the upper end of that grade level, and they're not making as much progress. And so they specifically targeted that group, and the progress was made. And as I spoke to that administrator, I was excited to hear that, of course, if things aren't working, because we're still implementing, that, the teachers and the administrators in that building are going to step up and communicate that. So I'm excited to hear that. What we haven't heard is, what concerns does our administration have going into it?
I'm not trying to sugarcoat this. I'm trying to give you an honest appraisal. We have several of our administrators here with us tonight, principals specifically at the elementary level. And I have found their support for this program absolutely unflinching. Mm-hmm. They truly, when we talk about this being grassroots, this truly was. This was our principals coming to us and saying, our school's ready to do this, or our school's ready to do that. We need the flexibility to marshal resources in our building to address a particular need of strength or a lack of a particular strength. And so I have to say, and I'm not looking at the principals right now, but I just have to say that we've done many innovative things. We've done many progressive things in our district. I can't remember a time when the principals to a person said, yes, this is the way we need to go.
I think when I think about concerns, we do have brand new curriculum coming out. That's part of the reason for doing this. We're going to be tested in a way that we've never been tested before. And I think about next year is going to be very interesting for us in sorting out what's working and what's not, as we think about changing assessment, methods and looking at that growth. I think too we have to be very careful not to stay just academically focused. We've talked a lot through Future Focus, through many things that we care very, very much about our students' social and emotional well-being, and we want to make sure that we use our supports and direct them in those places. And that's really hard today when we've got all these changes that they're coming on the forefront. But we have to stay true to that and committed.
That's the point that I wanted to make. I think my biggest concern, and it's not a fear, it's just a concern that we need to make sure that we pay great attention to at PSAC, is ensuring that we're providing the support, especially to our principals, who we often refer to as our windows into the classrooms in the schools, to ensure that they have what they need, whatever resources, whether it's time, material, or people, whatever that is, to ensure that this succeeds. As Kitty said from the beginning, this really emerged out of the school improvement process, conversations about how to improve our schools, and I think my biggest concern is that maybe we haven't looked at these recommendations soon enough. And so now, how that we're ready to go forward, how do we provide the support to ensure that the people in our buildings have what they need so that this can be successful? And that's our commitment to do that. That's on us to ensure that we do that. But that's a concern from the point of that it's a matter of attention that we have to pay particular attention to.
I'm going to let Terry say. Terry would like to.
Like to
have the microphone for a second.
I don't have a question because Donna stole my question. I was going to ask, where's the risk in the whole program, and have you guys define it. But the real issue for me is I like the flexibility of it that you're going to go forward with. I like the collaboration and learning, and I also like the fact that the principals are going to be in charge and really solely responsible for the building and the learning that happens there. But we've had several presentations over the last 8 or so months around the Rising Star program, the school improvement program, and Tim's great work on the assessments, and he showed us how he's balancing everything. That really puts a lot of checks and balances in place. And the first one being the school improvement plans. The board has always heard about data warehouse and so forth, and seeing issues come up, but we haven't really had a metric to really track it from year to year. So the checks and balances, to me, are really going to come from the Rising Star and from the school improvement plans. For every year, we're going to reassess that, and we'll be able to tell that do we actually have growth, and we'll be able to see students achieve better metrics. And I think part of the issue is that what the community is missing is that everything is built one upon the other, all these presentations, and we've come up to this point. So there will be a lot of natural gaps in communication, because unless you come to every board meeting like we do and see all the information that's presented, there's going to be little gaps in times, and some of the information is going to be missing, not as clear. But I think you've done a really excellent job tonight in going back over 4 or 5 hours worth of presentations that we've sat through to really kind of gel it out into a good plan. And yeah, I really compliment you. It's been a lot of patience. I have confidence in you. I don't think you'd risk your careers over a move like this, and I think that's something that not to be taken lightly, because this board would not tolerate that, and I think that the administration knows that. We're not going to accept failure. We're expecting you to perform at a higher level, and we know you do it.
Michael, do you have any questions? I don't want to leave anyone out.
I think there were enough questions.
You've had your questions answered?
I've had my questions answered. The one thing that wasn't touched upon that several people commented on that I will bring up is I heard a couple people say, they thought the process was haphazard. And I don't want to use, I can't say that was the exact words, but I think everybody remembers they thought people were winging it and it's not ready for prime time and all this stuff. And, everything I've heard over the past several months argues against that so forcefully, it's almost ridiculous. I mean, and listening to it again tonight, if there is ever an administration and school, the principals that are deliberate and intentional and thoughtful about executing a program, this is it. I mean, there is so much thought that's gone into it. Apparently, communication could have been better, but that doesn't change the fact, at least in my opinion, this is what's absolutely best for our students. And to do anything less than this would be doing a disservice to them. So that's where I stand.
Anyone else? Comments, questions? Or
I have one more too, but it doesn't matter.
Okay. I appreciate your comments, Mike, and I just want to know, there's been a concern about communicating going forward as well. So we've already, said that there's been some apologies for communication in the past, and that's great, but now we have a chance to fix that going forward. So I'd like to understand, there's parents who are concerned that their child isn't going to get enrichment. I so trust what you're doing. I think that you've communicated, like Terry said, very well tonight, but I think that we still have the community to explain things to and to continue to communicate with and to continue to reassure. So can you explain how we're going to do that?
I'm going to take that initially. I think, in a first, I can't express enough to the community just how much personal responsibility I feel for the lack of what has been clear communication to you. It's been a priority from the very beginning, lesson learned. That being said, in terms of how we look at this particular proposal and what we're going to do, the communication will really be modeled off of the communication that happened after the Board of Education approved all-day kindergarten. And we'll use that as a model to develop how we communicate, whom we communicate with, and what it is that we communicate. Based on the feedback that we've heard from the community, regardless of how the board acts this evening, they have questions, and we need to ensure that we give them enough confidence that what we're recommending is what's right for kids and how it's going to be done. So yes, we'll work with educating the support staff from NESPA who would be impacted by this action on the recall rights and process, and that information will get to them, I believe, as early as tomorrow if the board acts on this, so that they understand that process. It is, again, our intent and hope that these individuals come back and support this model. We depend on those people. This recommendation is not a commentary on the individuals who did exactly what we've asked them to do and did it very well. This is actually building off of their talents and strengths and using them in a different way. How we communicate with parents so they have a better and clearer picture about what's happening in our classrooms, and not just within the individual classrooms, but we need to do a better job of communicating overall, holistically, about the things that are going on in education, most specifically about what's impacting us. On May 5th, I intend to present for the first presentation to the Board of Education an overview of the strategic blueprint, which is going to really outline a number of things that we have planned over the next 6 years and the roadmap on how we'll get there. And that communication, I think, is something that we will continue to do and ensure that the parents and those impacted by this decision have their questions answered. So we'll continue to push that information out and provide the appropriate forums to answer those questions.
Thank you so much. Do we have another question?
Thank you for the comments a little bit. Really loud. Thanks for the comments about the communication. I think that is something that we have heard from the community over and over, that they want to see better communication, and I appreciate your assurances in that, and even your outlining of the kinds of models that we can utilize to try to really improve there and make sure that our communication never gets in the way of our message, which is, I think, what happened here, is that our communication efforts actually hindered our ability to explain this model. One of the things that I think is noteworthy, and like Jackie, I've been around in a lot of schools, doing my very, very best to research with the administrators, with the learning support coaches. And one of the things that I heard in talking with them, besides their unqualified support, which I agree, that is something that I think is noteworthy and is compelling, the support that the principals have. But I know that this move took the community by surprise. But when I talked to the principals and when I talked to some of the, like, for example, learning support coach, that different kind of feedback, there's a little bit of a different story in terms of the work that has been done, and I think you've tried to outline it here tonight to lay the groundwork for this change. And so I'm wondering if you can just talk just for a second about the things that you believe have really been the building blocks that have put us to this point, as well as the other part of that question, which is the case for moving forward right away, because I think that's another question the community has had in terms of, how quickly to move with this, going forward with this new model. And I've heard many compelling things about, the connection with the curriculum and the need for moving forward. But I want you to outline that in terms of both the groundwork that went in as well as the necessity of the change right away.
Well, I think a lot of the groundwork is what you see on the screen. The laws of school improvement and the layers of leadership, which actually have 2 more layers in addition to that, were introduced to our administrators and then our school improvement teams 2 summers ago.
Right.
And in those introductions, we explained the laws of school improvement and really talk through the system of practice. I think that everything that Tim's office has done with assessment, I mean, that's the first step. If you don't know where your kids are, you can't do any of this really well. And if you don't use the same consistent data over time, at least the data you have control over, then you can't do this at all. And so I think that is extremely important groundwork. I think our principals' embracing of the school improvement process. There's been work that's been done with our reading specialists in moving the practice and implementing the standards and everything that's in our curriculum, the new math, the new literacy, and there have been other efforts as well.
And I think when you talk about Mrs. Fitzgerald, what is the case for this? For me, the compelling case for this is that we can't have 2 systems running simultaneously. We need to have a cohesive, focused effort with our arrows, not to be trite, but our efforts pointed in the same direction. And if not now, when? When will we do this for students? We really, when Mr. Fielden talks about that our reputations are on the line, they are. And it's something that we take very, very seriously. So I think that that is the case for this. We've got the data, we have the research, we have a strong leadership team here at Central Office. We have outstanding, courageous principals. We have fantastic teachers and wonderful, wonderful assistants. And so we do have what we need to make this successful, and we feel strongly that we will.
Okay, thank you. In talking with, I've done my very best to try to talk to all the players in this. Just talking to the teachers and talking to the learning support coaches and talking to the principals. And I think that depth of our community and the depth of support and the depth of preparation and the depth of belief in the strength of the system is something that really speaks volumes. And so I appreciate that. And I want to compliment all of you in putting forward what you believe to be best, not necessarily popular, but best for the students of the district. And I appreciate all the time that you've taken to work with all of us to go through these checks and go through these questions and go through all these different things that are super important in ensuring that this is successful and that our community has the confidence in it as well. So I appreciate that. And I want to say to the community that I really appreciate the efforts that we have seen from all of you to be a part of this process, because the questions that you have sent, the thoughts that you have sent, the experiences that you have sent, that has been a part of this process. It has sharpened and fine-tuned it. It has it has helped us to elaborate. It has helped us to find the words to express what needs to be expressed. And so I want to give you a special thank you for that, because this community has reached out with the same goals of really making sure that we do the best for our students, and it has made this process work better. So I want to thank you for all of that and tell you how invaluable I believe it to have been.
Awesome. I think I have 2 words written down: student growth. Have you ever heard anything more important? Ever? Ready to propose? Make a motion?
Call a vote.
Call a vote.
We need to make a motion.
Make a motion. Yes, please. Please. Thank you. Thank you very much. Sorry about that. Got all involved in my Robert's rules. Thank you very much.
I move approval of item 10.07, instructional assistance recommendation resolution. authorizing dismissal of educational support personnel as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for instructional assistance recommendation resolution authorizing the dismissal of educational support personnel. Ms. Bell?
Fitzgerald.
Aye.
Weinke. Yes. Crotty.
Yes.
Yench.
Aye.
Romberg.
I'm sorry.
Romberg.
Romberg.
Can you hold on one second? I usually do discussion again afterwards. I do discussion afterwards, so somebody would like to make a
No, that's fine.
comment.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, make a comment.
No, that's all right. Go ahead.
I just thought we had so much conversation. I was trying to, okay, yes, from Romberg.
Fielden.
Yes.
Price.
Yes.
Motion carries. Schedule of events. I wanted to thank Julie. I don't see Julie here this evening, but thank Julie for adding in the, oh, sorry. Sorry, Julie. Thank you for adding the next fiscal year things already in the calendar. Thank you, thank you. We love that. And this board is going back into closed session. We'll have nothing to report, but we are going to have to go into closed session because we didn't have quite enough time to get some things handled.
I just want to remind everyone that the Naperville Education Foundation breakfast is coming up on May 1st, and if you haven't RSVP'd, now's a good time.
I need to do that.
I haven't done
I need to do that.
You can do it online. It's really easy.
I know.
It just takes
I
like
just need
2
to
minutes.
do it. I just need to do that. Okey doke, we will have a motion to adjourn, and then I will ask for a motion to go into closed session. No, I don't adjourn, I just go into close, sorry. A motion to go into close.
A motion to go into closed session.
Okay.
I move we go into closed session for the purposes of collective negotiating matters between the district and its employees or their representatives.
Great.
You have to do that.
So I'm going to second it?
I don't care who does it.
Okay, second it. All in favor? Oh, no, voice vote. We need voice vote, sorry. Roll call, yeah, I'm sorry.
Yench. Price.
Yes.
Fitzgerald.
Aye.
Weinke. Yes. Fielden.
Yes.
Romberg.
Yes.
Crotty.
Yes.
Susan, I'm so sorry.